Good morning, everybody. Hope you're having a fantastic week. Hey, we are going to talk about building up versus tearing down. And the scripture that I'm going to base it on is Proverbs 25:11. Like apples in a gold setting of silver is a word fitly spoken at the right time. And sometimes as in homeschooling, we separate the role of teacher from the role of parent. And so I'm a mom or a dad here, but I'm a homeschool teacher. And so over here as a teacher, this is the way it is. What I would suggest as we step into this is that we combine those roles. A parent is discipler and training up their children. And so as they do that, they are, it is one and the same. You're not a parent authority ruler and then an educator over here. The moment our children are born, I keep pointing to Brittany, and Brittany is with me today. Brittany serves as our publicist, but Brittany is also my daughter. So she's firsthand proof of whether any of this actually works.
No pressure.
Okay. Yeah. Just smile and nod. So, can I start off also by saying, as we talk about this, this is a no shame zone. So it'd be very easy as I begin talking to begin to personalize it and feel bad or feel shame about that. And I think we have to give ourselves grace that there is no such thing as a perfect parent outside of our Father God. And we have to look at it like I am on a growth journey. We coined that phrase. It's our phrase. I've copyrighted, trademarked it. We are on a growth journey, and we have to give ourselves grace. I'm learning, and I'm a better parent. I think every day I become a better parent as long as I don't look at it as I failed. I look at it as I'm growing, and I'm learning, and I'm developing. And I think you would agree with me that I'm a better parent today than I was. Okay.
I love that you're like trying to get me to answer that yes by
subconsciously
shaking your head.
Yeah, I'm just joking. She has the right to say she doesn't think I am. It would hurt
awkward.
It would hurt our relationship if you did.
This is a safe zone, but if you say no, know that it's not a safe zone.
No, a no shame zone for them, not for you.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so I've invited Brittany in today kind of as an executive producer, if you will, so that she can watch comments, and if there are questions, she can interject and ask me to explain a little more.
And there are a lot of good mornings, so good morning, and good morning.
Yes, it's awesome that you joined us, and thank you for the honor and the privilege of your time. Okay, so 3 tips. The first tip, and this is one that I'm always going to start with, is you first. As the parent, as the teacher, as a trainer, you have to be the one who is emotionally healthy first. Mm-hmm. Before we can speak to our children or those around us and encourage them and help them, we have to be emotionally healthy. And that just takes work. And I think a couple of things that affect this, okay? When one of my children does something, if it hurts me or offends me, sometimes it's easy to get stuck in a justice loop, is what I would call it, where you feel that justice needs to be served. That until there's some kind of justice that has been served and some kind of penalty has been paid, then I can't be at peace with it. And I think when it comes to building up and encouraging and being constructive, we have to evaluate that. What price satisfies my justice loop? When do I feel vindicated for this injustice that's happened? And maybe that's not just our kids. Maybe it's our spouse or those around us. At what point do I feel that justice has been served? And why have I set myself up as a judge who requires and demands justice? Mm-hmm. And I think we have to look at the example of Christ in this especially. He doesn't require perfection of me. He requires me to grow and to develop, but he's not demanding perfection of me. So when I feel that I have the right to demand perfection from somebody, when I'm not capable of being perfect? What gives me that right? And so evaluating that and giving the same grace that we receive and would like to receive. So the number one for you first and being emotionally healthy, I would say we want to make sure that we identify a justice loop. Is there a justice loop where I feel that some they need to pay a price? They need to feel this because I feel the injustice. They need to. And can I instead say, I have received grace and I have received mercy. And in the same way that I want that grace and mercy when I'm not perfect, I'm going to extend that to those around me. Another thing when it comes to emotional health would be, what do I feel I need to prove? So this happened a lot to me as a younger dad, but when my children didn't measure up to some expectation or some standard, it was me that was failing, not them. I think it was probably about, I don't know, seven or 8 years ago in my early 40s where I changed a lot of my mentality, and I needed a lot of mercy and a lot of grace. And I really adapted this room to grow philosophy. And what identifies me as a parent, what identifies us as a family is not perfection, not living up to somebody's standard, but being able to say, what we value here is growth. And as long as I know that my children's heart is to pursue God and that they have a relationship with Christ, then it's not a reflection on whether or not I'm a good parent or not. And if I feel the need that if you're judging me based on the performance of my children, then I'm going to put undue pressure on them to be a better example because I'm concerned about what people are thinking of them. That's a lot of stress to be under. And I think it's important in our relationships that we say, they're little humans, they're imperfect, they're not perfect, and we're not going to expect perfection. What we see is growth, and that's what I see with my kids is I see continual growth, and that's part of the discipling process and part of the training.
And you're really good at calling out growth too, which is nice.
And encouragement.
Yeah.
That's
so to tell, yeah. Okay,
good.
cool.
Good. Thank you.
I'm just letting you know.
Thank you. Anything I need to?
No, but Brianna's making pancakes, which is making me kind of hungry. I'm from Minnesota, from Florida, and Kentucky.
Awesome.
Good morning.
So we have to look at not making it's that our children are a reflection on us, because they are a reflection on us. They're imperfect humans in need of Christ. And so when somebody, we would discipline because of expectations of family members. I would require the kids to behave a certain way, not because it was important to me or important to their growth, but because there were expectations that we were trying to meet. And I think kids see that disingenuineness. Disingenuity? I don't know. They see that lack of genuineness when you're just it's because of what are other people going to think. So we want to identify those areas, and if we can change our mindset more to a perspective of, listen, what our brand here is, what we identify with as a family is growth and grace, that we're striving to grow as people, to grow in the image of Christ, and we give each other a lot of grace when we make mistakes because we also are imperfect, which would lead me to the kind of the third component of the first component, which is me first, in emotional health, would be empathy. Empathy is one of the strongest tools that we have in dealing with each other. It's if I don't have empathy and I don't try to understand your perspective and your hurt and your concerns, then it's very easy for me to be cold in my approach. And sometimes it's good to step back and say, what was it like when I was 7 and 8 and a teacher treated me like I was an idiot, or would call me a name or treat me that way? What did that do to my self-esteem? What did that do to my desire to learn? And having just kind of placing yourself in their shoes to feel what it would be like. And, the scripture is clear, do unto others as I would want them to do unto me, that setting that example of I want to treat them the way I would want to be treated. And we're not talking necessarily about discipline issues. We're talking more about your day-to-day interactions. But even when it comes to discipline, being careful not to overreact because it's proving something, or to overreact because you feel that they need to suffer and pay a price for their growth in grave, Tabitha says. Not growth in grave, growth in grace. Did I say grave?
She said grace.
Okay.
Grave, but there is a question in there once you pause for a sec.
Okay, so that's the first thing that I say is, if I want to be an encourager and build people up, I have to do the emotional work, the brain work, and be healthy emotionally in order to lead others and encourage others.
Good morning to Oklahoma and Texas. Do you feel that it is best to limit time with those who put extra pressure on your children and family to keep up with certain standards or other people, or do you just view it as a teaching moment for yourself and your children?
I think it depends on whether or not that person is the relationship toxic, in that they're undermining you as a person in front of your children, or the relationship is harmful in some way, versus it's your own issues, right? So you have to do the work of saying, am I healthy emotionally, that I don't really care what others think? I mean, I'll take input and I take criticism if it's constructive to help me be a better person and a better parent. But if it's just that you're setting expectations and I feel the need to live up to them, well, that's really on me, right? Because I'm responsible for my behavior. They can have that if they feel that they want that, because sometimes, like adult parents of adult children will put pressure, because if you're a perfect parent, your grandchildren are perfect, and that's a reflection on me. Well, that's their garbage to deal with. So at that point, they're an adult, you're an adult, you don't have to worry about their garbage, you just have to worry about your own garbage. So I wouldn't say you need to avoid the relationship, but it obviously shows that there's some unhealth in the relationship, and you have to find a way to be healthy with it and own that. And we've had even that conversation. There are times that I'm unhealthy in my response. And so I've had to apologize and even explain, this is why I'm reacting this way, and I don't want to.
Right. But I think, you've definitely grown in that and become better at giving room and like explaining where you're coming from. So it's not just like, this is how it is and whatever, like you're explaining why you got to that point.
Right.
And it's helped me too, because I said this in the last live, but I so often just assume where people are coming from, that I just immediately just try to assume why you're responding that way, instead of just giving you the space to tell me why.
Right. Yeah. In fact, sometimes if, with setting healthy boundaries in relationships, especially with adult children to parents, right, is understanding, that's your emotional issues to deal with, and I'm going to give you space as a human being to fully experience your garbage, but I'm not going to be responsible anymore for taking out your trash. I'm just going to work on my trash. And that's really what we're helping our kids do too.
It's your yard to mow. I have my little yard I got to keep mowed and keep up with, and you have your little yard.
Yes.
Every now and then I appreciate if you trim my hedges and stuff, help me out a little bit.
I'm sure you do. But if I do it every week,
I'm going to be like, these are my hedges.
Well, then you get like, if you're not careful and you do it every week, somebody's going to be like, well, why didn't you mow my lawn this week? You've done it every week for the last year.
I need to be responsible for my yard.
Yes. Okay, so number 2, the second tip that I would offer would be to reward the behavior you want, even in being an encourager instead of tearing down. It's easy to focus on what everybody should correct. It's much harder to focus on how do we improve. And when we know that our children are struggling in an area, or our spouse or our friends are struggling in an area, just to acknowledge when they get it right is so powerful. That's the apple of gold in a setting of silver. To be able to speak and say, I know you've struggled here, but I saw the effort that you put into this, and I just want to applaud you for that. It was noticed.
Yeah.
Our wiring is we want to receive affirmation and positive reinforcement. We are designed as people to avoid pain. And if you are a source of pain, if you are a negative person and you're critical and you just go after the negative, what you will do is you will drive the people around you away from you. They'll find a way to isolate you from that pain. And I think that that's something really important for us in relationships, that if the only interactions we have is that you're causing me pain, emotional pain, I don't want that. We avoid that. We go out of our way. Today, Brittany has a situation where she's got that, she wants out of that moment, right? And you just don't want that. You just want to be at a place where we're at peace. Well, I have to be careful as an encourager that I don't become somebody who's causing pain, because at that moment, the moment I cause somebody pain, they stop listening to me. They stop caring about what I say, and they care more about how do I just get this corrected so that the pain stops.
Right. And I'll say you've been very intentional about because especially a lot over the last year, I'd say, becoming better at encouraging and giving space to let me kind of make some mistakes, but in like a healthy way, I would say. You've made yourself a safe place, because I don't have to worry that I'm going to come to him, ask him a question or ask for advice, and he's going to like get on my case about stuff or be like, this is how it should be. This is how you should operate. It's been giving me room to process, but I know that you're safe and that you want the best for me, because you're not just like, does that make sense?
Yeah. Now, though, we've talked about some things that I have very strong opinions on.
Right.
And I've still explained that, which is the number 3 point, which is, why is this important? So telling people what to do is nowhere near as effective as telling them why it's important to do the right thing. So number 1, I have to be healthy with it. I have to understand that this is, am I doing anything that sets a bad example, creates a bad environment? Am I emotionally unhealthy? Are my motives wrong? Number 1. Number 2 is that rewarding the behavior, that encouraging when I see the effort to grow and moving in the right direction. Number 3, why is this important? So when we've had some topics that have come up, I'm adamant about explaining, this is why I think this is important. The decision is yours. And even with our kids, even with our young kids, you can force them to do something, and you can train them through force. But I think what happens is they get older and they have the ability to make their own choice, and you're not there anymore with a whip to correct them. They eventually will stop doing that. I think if you can help them understand the why behind what we do is important, that's a much better motivator, especially when you combine it with, that's the example they've seen. Like, I do take seriously that I get what I lead. And so when I see my children doing something that I don't like, my first place to go is, what am I doing that's setting an example that this is okay? And because they're learning from me, I'm discipling and training, but I'm doing it. We teach so much more through who we are. So then we'd have the message of encouragement with why is this important? And that's the part of constructive criticism versus destructive criticism or negative. Even sometimes in this group, you see a group dynamic, and we'll have somebody ask a question, and the question will be about the curriculum, and they have an openness to see, number 1, was it intentional? Number 2, this is a little bit of, this is what I'm struggling with the issue. And you'll see that the reaction of the team tends to be very, we hadn't considered that, or there was a good reason we did this, or this is something that needs to be changed. And we love constructive criticism because it helps us to develop our product. Then you see the negative criticism, which is just almost just like, it's a judgmental, putting yourself above and being like, casting judgment, and it causes a reaction by the team that is defensive and harder to accept, because the tone isn't from a building up standpoint or a humility. It's more of a you're an idiot, and you're an idiot and there's no hope for you. And I think that constructive is really being intentional about that. I want to see you grow. I want what's best for you. and how do we accomplish that? And just saying, you're stupid just like your father, or you're, you're lazy, you're a liar, you're these things, begins to be destructive, as opposed to looking for, God created you unique and with purpose, and he gave you gifts and talents. And what we're going to work towards is helping you discover those gifts, discover those talents, and to achieve everything that God has called for you. And I'm going to do that, and I'm not going to be perfect in it either. But what I have, like at this point in my life, I have 50 years of life experience. I'm a much better father today than I was 30 years ago with my older children, but that's just because I have 30 years more of experience that I can draw from. So I'm able to be much humbler. I have nothing to prove to anybody, and I can look for ways to encourage and direct and guide my children in that way.
Lost my mouse.
Oh no, you were playing. There we go. Okay.
As Stormy said, This is coming at the perfect timing for me. It's been a pretty hard couple of days here. I'm sorry, but I'm happy that it's helping out.
So we get this a lot, right? Especially this time of year. In fact, we used to live in New York, and I would say this is the time that cabin fever comes in, and you feel like you may need to eat your children type thing. These are seasons, right? And so don't get lost in hopelessness that this is your life now. It's going to change. This doesn't last forever. And especially when you have young children and you're just under the stress of, if I could only take a shower, life would be like, I would feel like $1 million if I could just get a shower. Those are seasons. And in those days, again, give yourself some grace, give yourself room to be human, but just be aware that we'll save ourselves a lot of money when you get my age on counseling, therapy, if we can be a little more sensitive to not being destructive and a steamroller over our children's emotions. So
Megan said, I'm really trying to find ways to focus more on encouragement. It is so easy for me to focus on correcting the wrong and not encouraging the good part.
Yeah, I agree. And what I have to do, and I'll take a big piece of paper and I'll do something like that where I start mapping out what am I feeling and why am I feeling this? And sometimes I've been surprised when, who am I to judge anybody? God has given me such grace. My family and my wife have given me such grace and mercy in my life. Who am I to judge anybody? And each of us is on a different journey, and it's so difficult to, unless you've walked my journey and I've walked your journey, I have no idea what makes you who you are. And if I'm standing in judgment over you, doesn't mean I always enjoy a personality and I'm perfect in that way. But I think I have to look at it from the perspective of trying to be more the example of Christ.
Stormy said, my 7-year-old overheard eat your children. And he said, wait, what? Eat your children? The day will come when you don't want to eat your children anymore. I think that's what he was saying. It's a season right now.
Yeah.
It'll go away. That feeling will go away.
It all goes back to that. What's the party is it the Dahmer party that ended up, the trial and the journey where they almost died and the cabin fever that ensued. So I grew up with that comment of in Buffalo, New York, when the snow is 84 inches tall and you're ready to eat your children. Probably wasn't appropriate for this audience.
But Tabitha said it's another Randyism.
Yeah. Well, you know what I mean, right? Like you're stuck in the house. You can't go out because it's cold. Or here's worse, right? You went to church on Sunday. Somebody else came into the nursery and their kids are sick. And guess what? It takes 3 days to incubate or whatever it is that a flu or fever does. So you have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, about the day that you're getting ready to go back to church to see all your friends, they get the fever. Then they start puking. All these things start to happen. Now you're in the sick cycle. And then what happens? Now that child gives it to the next one 3
So
days.
whose kids do you want to eat
Thursday,
at that time?
Friday, Saturday, right before Sunday. You have 9 kids. There were months.
Yeah, because by the time it made it through the first set, the second set would get it, and then it'd go back around. Yeah.
There were times for poor Kristen where she'd be home for like 2 months at a time with sick kids and couldn't go out. Yeah. So in those cases, I mean, we all became germaphobes in our house because you have 9 kids sharing one bathroom. It was nobody liked that experience at all. And yeah, so those are the moments that I'm saying we understand it because we've lived it.
Yeah.
But when you're in that place and you're like, yeah, I remember going to school and they told me I could be anything I wanted to be. And I went to college and I got my degree to be an accountant. And here I am cleaning up and scrubbing up. And, you know, there were poor mom. She'd sit there for hours with kids just snotting and puking on her. Man, I think a rest completely on this teaching tips.
Game changer.
She is, and she set an example of sacrifice for her kids. And I will say that I think she always had in mind that she wasn't doing it. I was different. So remember the Gerber baby? Like I had my oldest daughter was supposed to be the Gerber baby. She was just supposed to sit there on her belly smiling at me 24/7. And she didn't like to smile very much. So she wasn't the Gerber baby. And I've had to realize that no, children actually, when we sign up for children, it's almost like saying, okay, God, I'm ready to start training and preparing for your kingdom versus I want all my needs met through my children. And that's kind of hard for some of us because I was kind of like, no, my children, I grew up during the days of 3 men and a baby and all the, you know, babies were kind of a big deal. Like I was like, all right, I'm ready to be a father because that'll make me feel good. And I love my kids and they have, but it's more about me actually sacrificing myself in the example that God gives us to help them be something better. Okay.
Desiree's in the 6th cycle now.
Sorry, Desiree.
Katie just came out of it with 6 kids.
So when your kids are all healthy, put them all in surgical masks go to church just to make a statement that we don't do this here. Some of our there have been some big moments where the nursery brawls.
Yeah, like why did you bring your children to church? We appreciate you.
You're out of here.
Hey Natalie, she's jumping in. She's gonna touch the replay.
All right. I think we're good.
Everybody's talking about their sick.
Yeah, because we're homeschooled. School starts, right? So all the kids go to public school, get their little sickness. My kids had like no immunity to it. So that little sniffles turned into full-fledged, you know, colds and it would go through the whole cycle of the house 2 or 3 times. Awful. But even in those places, stepping back and just saying, okay, Lord, this is a season. Give me grace. Help me to realize that how patient and kind you are in those places. And, you know.
It's definitely taken a turn. This whole topic.
I know. See, I bring you in and we just went downhill. I'm sorry.
I'm a bunny trail kind of person.
All right. Well, hey guys, hopefully this was a helpful teaching tip and you were able to take something away from it. You know, the lessons, what I wish somebody would have told me when I was in my 20s or 30s or 40s is just to be intentional about encouraging and being careful not to tear down because it's hard to repair the damage from those moments when we just blow a gasket. But when we do, to also be intentional about saying, I also am not perfect. And while nobody's here to spank me or to discipline me or make me write Proverbs today, I probably deserve it because I have completely blown it in the responsibility that I have to disciple and train you. And I have done that more than I wish. So, okay. Good. Hey, well, thank you guys. You have an awesome day. I'm going to tell you next Tuesday, the new Biology Through a Microscope book is available. And so we're going to talk about this book. And Yay. So
Woohoo!
it's a good book. I love the concept. I may even try to bring Chris in, who put it together for us. So, okay. Well, God bless you guys. Have a fantastic day. And thank you very much for joining us.
Bye.